Most people who encounter Neville Goddard come for the manifesting techniques. They want the method. They want to know how to get the job, the relationship, the money. And Neville gives them that. But underneath every technique he ever taught was a metaphysical claim so radical that most people absorb it without fully hearing it. The universe was created by you, not by a god you pray to, not by a force outside yourself, by you. Your consciousness, your imagination, your assumptions held in place long enough to harden into what you call reality. This is not a motivational metaphor. It is the literal, structural claim that Neville spent 30 years of teaching, trying to make people understand. And most people don't believe it. They hear it and nod, and then they go on treating the world as something that happens to them. Neville would say that reaction is the proof of the problem. The question nobody thinks to ask. When people discover Neville, they ask, how do I manifest what I want? That is the wrong starting question. The right question is, what is the nature of this world I am trying to change? Because if the world is an external mechanism, a set of circumstances with its own independent existence, then you are a person trying to influence something larger than yourself. You are, at best, a small cause in a large system, and manifesting becomes a kind of cosmic negotiation. But Neville's entire framework rests on a different premise. In The Power of Awareness, he states it plainly: the world is yourself pushed out. Not a metaphor, not an aspiration, a description of the structure of reality as he understood it. If that sentence is true, the question of who created the universe has a single, specific answer. And the practical consequences of that answer are total. Consciousness is the only cause. Neville's foundational premise is not about positive thinking. It is about the nature of consciousness itself. In At Your Command, written in 1939, before any of the more well-known works, Neville lays down the principle he would spend decades refining. Your consciousness is the only reality. Everything that exists in your world, every person, every circumstance, every condition, is a projection of states held in consciousness. The outer world does not cause the inner world. The inner world causes the outer. This is the inversion most people never fully make. We are conditioned from birth to believe that reality comes first and experience follows. Something happens, and we feel a certain way in response. Neville says this causal chain runs in the opposite direction. The feeling, the state of consciousness, comes first. The event is its consequence. In The Power of Awareness, he describes God not as a figure in the sky, but as your awareness of being. The God that created the universe is the awareness reading these words right now, not a higher version of you, not your best self. This present, immediate awareness, the simple fact that you are conscious, that you exist and know that you exist, is the creative power. The universe is not something that was made once, long ago, by something other than you. It is being made continuously, right now, by every assumption you hold. What creation actually means. In Awakened Imagination, Neville draws on Blake, on scripture, and on his own mystical experiences to describe imagination not as a faculty of the mind, but as the fundamental substance of reality. Imagination, he writes, is the real and eternal world of which this vegetable universe is but a faint shadow. This reframes everything. The vegetable universe, the world you can touch, measure, and photograph, is not the primary reality. It is the shadow. The primary reality is imagination, the living, feeling, conscious energy that gives rise to the shadow. When Neville asks who created the universe, his answer is, imagination created it. And imagination is what you are, not what you have, what you are. This is why technique alone always fails in Neville's framework. If you use the techniques while still believing that the external world is the cause and imagination is the tool, you are working backward. You are trying to use the shadow to move the light. In Feeling is the Secret, Neville is precise about the mechanism. The subconscious is the womb of creation. Whatever is impressed upon the subconscious, through feeling, through the state assumed before sleep, through the emotional reality given to an imagined scene, The subconscious externalizes without judgment, without preference, without exception. It does not evaluate, it creates. That is the engine of the universe. Not divine will operating on your behalf if you ask correctly. Your own subconscious faithfully externalizing everything you believe to be true. The most misunderstood element: identity, not desire. Here is where most people using Neville's methods stall. They treat imagination as a request mechanism. They construct scenes of what they want. They feel the wish fulfilled, and then they wait, as though they have placed an order and the universe is the fulfillment center. Neville does not teach this. Or rather, he teaches something much more specific that gets flattened into this. The key concept in the power of awareness is not desire, it is identity. Neville writes, "The state of consciousness from which you view the world is your fate. Not what you want, not what you ask for. What you are. The identity you have assumed, the being you take yourself to be. The universe is not responding to your wishes. It is confirming your identity. It is pushing out the state you occupy, not the state you aspire to." This is why two people can use the exact same technique and get radically different results. One person imagines the scene while remaining, at their core, a person who lacks the thing they want. The other person moves into the state of the person who already has it. The first is using imagination as a tool of desire. The second is using it as Neville intended, as an act of being. In Resurrection, Neville frames this in explicitly biblical terms. The resurrection is not a historical event. It is the resurrection of yourself into a new state of being. You die to what you were and are reborn as what you have assumed yourself to be. The universe then conforms. This is the creation event, happening continuously. Why the world seems to disagree. The obvious objection: if I am creating my reality, why does so much of my life look nothing like what I would choose? Neville addresses this directly, and his answer is confronting. In the power of awareness, he makes no exceptions. Your world is a mirror, forever reflecting back the dominant state of your inner life. The word dominant matters, not your occasional positive visualization, not your conscious desire, your dominant state. The assumptions you carry automatically, the self-concept you return to when nothing is prompting you to think otherwise. Most people's dominant state is not what they consciously believe. It is what they feel in unguarded moments, the small, persistent sense of inadequacy. The background assumption that good things are unlikely, that they are not the kind of person things go well for, that the world is indifferent or hostile. These are the states that create, because they are the states that are held with the most consistency, with the most emotional charge, and with the deepest level of belief. Neville doesn't say the world is unfair. He says the world is perfectly accurate. It is showing you exactly what you are, not what you want. And the reason this is difficult to hear is that it transfers complete responsibility. There is no external force to blame. There is no luck, no fate, no algorithm of circumstance that distributes outcomes. There's only consciousness and the world it has constructed. The deepest claim. Neville was not teaching self-help. He was making a theological claim. In the power of awareness, he states what he means by God with complete clarity. God and man are one, and there is no other God. Not one in the sense of aligned, one in the sense of identical. The creative consciousness that underlies the universe is the same consciousness that is reading this sentence. This is not pantheism. The idea that God is spread through everything. It is something more specific. God is not the trees and the rivers. God is the awareness that perceives them, and that awareness is yours. Neville draws this from his reading of Scripture, particularly from the I am passages. In At Your Command, he writes, I am is the name of God, and you bear this name. Every time you say, I am tired, I am lucky, I am someone things never work out for, and you are speaking with the creative voice of God, you are issuing a command to the subconscious, which will faithfully externalize it. This is why Neville treats the words that follow "I am" with such seriousness. You are not describing yourself, you are creating yourself, and the self you create is the world you inhabit. If the universe is a creation, and consciousness is the creator, and your consciousness and God's consciousness are not two different things, then you are not a being in a universe. You are the being the universe is being made by. The synthesis. Buddha, when asked who created the universe, remained silent. That silence pointed to the dissolution of the questioner into the question, the recognition that there's no separate observer standing outside existence. Neville, asked the same question, would not remain silent. He would answer directly, "You did." And then he would tell you to stop treating that as a comforting philosophy and start treating it as a practical fact. The practical fact is this: the world you are living in is an externalization of your dominant assumptions. The circumstances you call fixed are states you have held long enough to crystallize. The people who confirm your limitations are playing roles your consciousness has cast them in. The obstacles are not obstacles. They are mirrors. The act of creation is not something God did in the past. It is something consciousness is doing right now, in every moment, through every assumption held to be true. In The Power of Awareness, Neville closes with the challenge that underlies his entire body of work. It is not a promise. It is a test of whether you have actually understood what he is saying. You are already that which you want to be, and your refusal to believe this is the only reason you do not see it.